Welcome to Executive Leaders Radio, your spot in the corner office, the radio show where executives share their secrets to success. Executive Leaders Radio.
You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio, broadcast from the Philadelphia law offices of Obermeyer. This is your host, Herb Cohen, with my co-hosts, Peter Snelling, Merrill Lynch, Andrew Hanlon, Shannon Lane, Newmark Knight Frank, Maria Panicelli, Obermeyer, Amy Loftus, Slalom, and Taylor Levinson. And Peter, will you please give us a rundown on who we have on the air today?
Sure can, Herb. We have Maria Gonzalez, President and CEO of HACE, Deanna Byrne, the Philadelphia office managing partner of PwC, Dr. Jean-Pierre Issa, President and CEO of Coriell Institute for Medical Research, and Ethan Eisner, President, Reed Tech.
Let's get to know our first guest, Maria Gonzalez, President and CEO of HACE. What is HACE, Maria?
HACE is a community development corporation serving the Fairhill and St. Hugh neighborhoods, which is west of Kensington. We build affordable housing for families, senior citizens. We also develop commercial spaces to attract employers. The population that we serve is 85% Hispanic. Most are living in poverty. About 57% of the households that are in our community live below the poverty level, and it's mostly a renter.
Alrighty. Where are you from originally?
I am from Morovis, Puerto Rico, a small town in the middle of the island.
How many brothers and sisters?
I am the middle of 4 children.
And how young were you when you moved to Philadelphia?
I was 10 years old.
And what was it like moving from Puerto Rico to Philadelphia when you were 10 years old to that neighborhood?
It was different. I mean, it was stressful as a young person moving from a different environment where it's very green and lush and moving to more of a hardscape community here in Philadelphia.
What kind of school did you go to when you came to Philadelphia?
I went to the public school system, Ludlow, and here in North Philly.
And you were speaking English when you came to this country?
No.
So you were speaking Spanish. When you came to Philadelphia and you went to school, did you have a lot of Spanish language classes?
No. Actually, during those times, there was only one class per grade.
And what class was that?
That was the homeroom class.
So how did you learn about math and science and everything else if all you spoke was Spanish and there was only one class in English, which was homeroom?
I consider myself a pretty smart, bright kid, so pretty much I had this desire to learn. So I read a lot of books and just became immersed in learning Spanish.
Maria,
English.
You mentioned in the green room that you grew up in public housing. What influence has that had on what you're doing today?
It has a lot of influence because, living in public housing, you're kind of like stuck in the middle because you're poor and there's very little opportunity to move up. And there were not a lot of services during that time. And now I see, by living in the community and experiencing that, I know what would be best for the neighborhood I serve.
Maria, when you came to the United States, you kind of watched your parents struggle for some time. And what was that like as a kid?
It was stressful and full of anxiety, seeing your parents, trying to do better and just making barely enough to survive and support the family.
And how did those times impact you today as a leader?
It impacts me because I have empathy for the families that we serve and the people that live in our community because I know that I feel and I felt just the way that they feel.
Maria?
Were you closer with your mom or your dad growing up?
I was closer with my mom.
And what do you bring from your mom to work every day?
She was a nurturing parent but she was tough. So she taught me a lot about independence and being resilient.
Taylor?
So you said in the green room your parents divorced at 12. How did that affect your relationship with your siblings?
It didn't. It made me, if anything, step up more and be more of a leader, the older child, and really be more supportive and help out my mother.
Wait a minute. So you're the middle of 4 kids, and mom and dad got divorced when you were 12, but yet you took on the responsible role with the siblings.
Yes. My older brother, he moved with my dad, so pretty much I stepped up to be the older child.
What did that stepping up when mom and dad got divorced have to do with you building this organization, HACE?
I think it taught me about being resilient, leadership skills, and really trying to figure out problems and learning from my mistakes. And also,
Should you be admitting that, you're the head of this organization. Should you be admitting that you make mistakes?
Absolutely. That's how we learn.
Yeah, but you're telling all your people that you make mistakes publicly.
That's okay. You learn mistakes. I think it's a bigger mistake when you don't learn from your mistakes initially.
I just wanted to make sure I understood, Shannon.
Maria, you've done a lot to create a supportive community for the elderly. Why is that important to you?
It is important to me because, that's a population that is very fragile and very frail in our community, especially when the majority of our Spanish-speaking elders do not speak English. So they have more of a difficulty in navigating and getting the services that they need so that they can age in place with dignity.
Mm-hmm. Amy?
Maria, you had a lot of pressures growing up as a kid. What did you do for fun?
So what we used to do for fun, I grew up poor, so what we used to do is all the neighborhood kids would get together and we would organize what we were going to do for the week. So we would go to the local pool, we would go to the park, or we would just hang out in front of the fire hydrant to stay cool. There was really no money for organized sports or anything of that.
You described this group that hung out together in the green room as a pack. What was your role in that pack?
So I was kind of like the leader, the organizer, making sure that, we all were together and everyone was secure, and we would go to the park together and make sure that everybody came back together.
Maria, how many kids were in this pack?
I would say about 8 kids.
Uh-huh. How'd you go about getting everybody's cooperation? Did you yell and scream at them?
No, I did not. I think that naturally, I'm very patient and very low-key, so they naturally gravitated to me.
Wait a minute. I thought the boss, screams and yells a lot.
I don't believe in that. I want people to want to work for me, not have to work for me.
You want people to want to work for you, not have to work for you.
That's correct.
What are you talking about? What do you mean?
I want to make sure that, the team that is working with me, and that's what I call working with me, that they feel inspired by the work that we're doing in the community, that we're fulfilling the mission of the organization, and not necessarily be afraid. If anything, I encourage them to bring new initiatives to the organization and create new projects because overall, I can't do all the thinking for everybody.
Uh-huh. What did your mom and dad do for a living?
My dad was a baker and my mom worked in a factory.
Your dad was a baker and your mom worked in a factory. Where'd you get this understanding of the human dynamic from?
I think it's just I was, very shy kid, and I was a listener. I listen and, engage situations, and from there, I'm able to do what I do.
What did you get from Dad you bring to work every day?
What I got from him is that he had this intense desire to be the best and do the best.
Dad was a baker.
Still, he made the best donuts in the town. Mm-hmm.
So you got the drive to be the best from Dad. What'd you get from Mom?
From her, independence. She was a nurturer, but she, taught us tough love. You made your mistakes, you're going to have to figure it out how to get out of there. So I became very independent and resilient person.
So Mom was full of love, but yet she helped you be independent. But Mom was a factory worker.
Hey, when you grow up poor, you have to be resilient and you have to learn how to be independent and self-sustaining.
So you can't judge people from what they do?
No.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that? What are you talking about? You can't judge them by their jobs?
No, I think that, in the community that we serve, and you see a lot of families, just because they're poor doesn't mean that they don't have potential. That doesn't mean they don't have dreams, that they don't aspire to be better. They just need those opportunities. Just like me, I grew up poor, and, I was able to build a career. I had many challenges, but I had that fire in my belly to make sure, that I wanted to do more and do better and help people along the process.
Maria, speaking of those challenges, I'm just curious, what advice you would give to a kid that's maybe 10 or 12 and facing an uphill battle or, doesn't have everything they want for?
I think that it's kind of like what I do in my life. Keep your head down, do work hard, study, and know that nothing is going to be given to you for free. Don't take anything for granted, and just keep on pushing. Set yourself a goal, a small goal, and then after you achieve that goal, establish a bigger goal and keep on working.
Maria, following on to Drew's question, you described yourself as a free-range kid growing up. Tell us what that means and why it's important in your success.
We grew up, my parents just basically say, hey, go outside and play, and we were out there for the rest of the day with very little direction. We were very good kids, and we just learned how to be free-spirited and do things on our own, be more independent, figure things out.
Mm-hmm. Maria, what's the website address of this organization called HACE?
HACECDC.org.
All right, spell that out for us.
HACECDC.org.
All right, give me that one more time again. HACECDC.org. All right, we've been speaking with Maria Gonzalez, who is President and CEO of HACE here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com, to learn more about our executive leaders. We'll be back in a moment right after this break. Want to help building your business with help from this show's CEOs? Our CEOs can help you uncover more opportunities, grow your sales, connect you, help you raise money, all the big issues, because our CEOs have been there and done that. They've succeeded in creating millions of jobs and earning millions of dollars, and some are available to advise you. Now, email mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. That's mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. The same CEOs you've heard on the show for 10 years may be willing to help you build your business, uncover new opportunities, grow your sales, connect you, help you raise money, all the big issues, because our CEOs have been there and done that, succeeding in creating millions of jobs and earning millions of dollars. And some are available to advise you. Now, email mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. That's mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce Deanna Byrne, who's the Philadelphia office managing partner of an organization known as PwC. Deanna, what is PwC?
PwC is a global accounting, tax, and consulting firm. We operate in over 100 countries, 50,000 plus in the U.S., and right here in Philadelphia, we have over 1,700 people.
Okay, and you're the Philadelphia office managing partner. Where are you from originally?
I'm from Colwyn, a small borough right outside of Southwest Philadelphia, blue collar, and grew up in a twin house there.
So you grew up in a twin house, blue collar neighborhood in a suburb of Philadelphia. How many brothers and sisters?
I have two older brothers. I'm the youngest of three.
Okay.
How did your brothers inspire you?
Oh, my brothers, were great role models for me. They were really hard workers. We were very involved in sports. I think they provided me a lot of tough love that really helped prepare me for the business world.
And we learned a lot about you in the green room. Sports was a big part of your life. What was your favorite sport?
Softball was actually my favorite sport, but I played sports, lots of different sports growing up, field hockey, basketball, I swam. And softball.
And you mentioned earlier that your mom would get to come watch a lot of your games, right?
Yeah, my mom was my lunch
what did
lady.
that mean to you when you look over and see your mom watching?
It was fantastic. I think having that community and knowing that you had that support from home was really important.
And what did she tell you on the way home, maybe after a tough game or things didn't go as you wished?
Well, she gave me a much different message than my brothers. So her message was always very inspiring. You know, you did a great job. You tried your best. Continue to do that, and you'll be successful.
And how about your brothers? What was their message?
It was normally focused on statistics of my play for the day.
Deanna, you shared in the green room that softball was your favorite sport. Yeah. What role did you play on the team?
Different roles in different organizations, but I pitched, played first base, outfield. I even caught for a while.
You also mentioned that you were a captain. How did that come about?
Yeah, I was made the captain in both my junior and senior year for softball and also my senior year for field hockey.
Was that because you were the most popular?
No, I think it was because I tried to help everyone on a team, continue to advance their skills and try to find
How
the right
does that
role.
relate to what you do today?
I think it's right in line with what I do, is trying to help our clients, help our people, find the right people to help our clients solve their problems.
Deanna, what did your parents do for a living?
My dad was a truck driver and then became a cab driver later, and my mom was the lunch lady at my elementary school.
So did you guys have a chance to sit down as a family and eat dinner together?
We did a lot. My father wasn't always there given his driving schedule, but my brothers and my mom, yeah. And we try to do that pretty often.
And what was the typical dinner conversation like?
It varied. A lot of it did center around our activities, our sports, also our aspirations. My parents hadn't gone to college, and so we were really focused on what each of us was doing. It was important to them that we go down that path, and it was important to us as well.
And how does that relate to the way you run things at PwC?
I think bringing community and trying to help everyone continue to advance their skills. I think our organization is one of continuous learning and trying to help solve problems for not only our clients, but also our people.
Deanna, you mentioned that 2 older brothers subjected you to a lot of tough love. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
It definitely prepared me. I mean, things were, we were in an environment where it was very competitive to get that, that last piece of meat on the table, and competitive in order to get what you wanted to in the household. Who had to do the chores? I always had to run down the street for my brothers, run to the store, lots of different stuff. But really, it really helped me develop thick skin, and it came with a lot of love. And I knew that. They were my biggest supporters. They still are.
And was there a sense of camaraderie?
Yes. When I was the firm's first female office managing partner in Philadelphia, and I think there was more pride from my brothers than almost anyone else.
So you said your friend group was super diverse. What was it like to try to find a common ground for all of you guys to hang out?
I think it's very similar to what I do now, is trying to look at each of the folks as individuals and find, where there are common threads that we can help one another and help our clients.
You mentioned earlier that you play different roles on different teams. Mm-hmm. How's that helping you build this thing called PwC, this ability of yours to play different roles on different teams?
I think being part of high-performing teams is really recognizing what your role is on each individual team. And you're never going to be the best. I'm an accountant by trade. I'm certainly not the best technician. But I surround myself, depending on what our objectives are, with the people that will help get to the best outcomes for our clients and for our teams.
So earlier we were talking during the green room, and you mentioned that you have a milestone occurring this week where 2 of your kids are going away, and
yes.
You felt a little distraught about that. Tell us a little bit about what's going on with you personally.
Well, I have 4 children. My oldest 2 are 20 and 18, so one will be returning to college this weekend, and my second will be leaving for the first time. He's going to go play juniors hockey down in Richmond, Virginia. So having 2 boys leave within 48 hours is a little sad for me as a mom. Very invested in what they're doing, and so it's just transition for the family.
So how many years have you been at PwC?
I've been there 30 years. I'm coming up on my 31st year in a couple weeks.
So you've been at PwC for 31 years. How many other jobs have you had?
None from a professional perspective, although I was a very good lifeguard.
So this was the first full-time job you've had, and you've been there 31 years.
Yes.
So you're all about relationships, long-term, deep relationships, aren't you?
Absolutely. I think that's what we pride ourselves within the firm, is developing long-standing relationships with our clients where they can trust us to help them solve their problems.
Oh, so you really are a trusted advisor for the long term. I mean,
yes.
You're feeling this lament that 2 of your 4 kids are going away. You've been with this firm for 31 years. It's all about relationships for you. Peter?
Speaking of deep relationships, we saw emotion on your face when you were talking about one of your mentors. Tell us about Mr. Coriell. What did he mean to you?
He was a teacher and a coach of mine when I was in high school, and, far exceeding any, expectations of a coach. He also helped my brother and myself get jobs, drove me to my class for my lifeguarding certification. So really took the extra time, went the extra mile.
How does that relate to your team and how you manage and look out for people?
I try to do the same. I always try to, look for the folks that need the help and make sure that even if it's not myself, that we're identifying who can provide that.
Who can provide what? What are you talking about?
The help that they need. So additional support, additional, skill building, and how can we get that for them?
Wait. I thought your job as head of PwC Philadelphia was to go get clients. But it sounds like your job is go get the team and keep the team happy. I'm trying to figure this out.
It's both, right? We don't deliver great service if we don't have great people. And that's what we produce, right? We don't make widgets at PwC. We sell really great, outstanding professionals.
So it sounds like you're like the master mother of the firm, aren't you?
I would take that role gladly.
What do you mean? What are you talking about?
Well, I think I'm definitely a consensus builder from a leadership perspective. I'm not an autocrat, and I look at my teams and try to develop, really notice what are their unique skills and how can they bring the best to the team, and then obviously to our clients.
Amy, what else are you thinking?
What were your friends, that group of diverse friends, have said about you and what you were like as a kid? What would they say about you now?
I think that they would have said, I definitely had that CPA, the debits and the credits of the world must equal. So I had that kind of type A personality where things needed to be certain, but also really loved, was very compassionate, I think. And I don't think they'd be very surprised to see that I was able to take a role that started off, from a technical perspective, accounting, and became more of, a leadership and management type role. Mm-hmm. We're really focused on the people.
I also hear just the roots of your relationship that run deep over 30 years back into your community, into your team, and that feels like something that's important to you. How do you keep building that at PwC?
Very important. I think we pride ourselves on, continuing to build a legacy for the next generation, and how do we invest in our young staff in order to do that.
Where does team building stuff come from? Your dad was a truck driver. And your mom was a mom. I mean, where'd this come from?
I think their whole family-first mentality and getting us engaged in team sports very young really helped solidify those values. Family first and team sports, you think, really laid the groundwork for you to manage how many people you're managing? There's 1,700 people in the office. Oh, my gosh. What's the website address of this organization? PwC.com. PwC.com. We've been speaking with Deanna Byrne, who's Philadelphia office managing partner of PwC here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website. It's executiveleadersradio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. It's executiveleadersradio.com. To learn more about our executive leaders, we'll be back in a moment right after this break. We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. And we'd like to introduce Dr. Jean-Pierre Issa, President and CEO of the Coriell Institute for Medical Research. Dr. Jean-Pierre Issa, what makes the Coriell Institute for Medical Research special?
It's an institute that is interested in understanding human health and curing diseases, and the founder of Coriell, Dr. Coriell, was one of the key people who eradicated polio from the United States. Mm-hmm.
Where you from originally?
I'm from Beirut, Lebanon. I grew up in Beirut.
What was going on with you 8 to 14 years old?
I had a warm and loving childhood until I was 11 years old, and then the civil war broke out in Lebanon, and it was essentially growing up in a war-torn country through my teen years.
How many different schools did you go to?
Between the ages of 11 and 17, I had a different school every year and a different place to live every year, practically.
Why?
Well, because when there is war, some places in Beirut were no longer livable. We had to move. We moved to different apartments. We stayed with friends. And one year we moved to France. I spent a year in school in France.
Drew?
Jean-Pierre, what was the impact that the Civil War had on you?
Well, when you grow up in a civil war, change happens all the time. So you learn not to fear change. You also learn to be self-reliant.
And what did you turn to for fun? Like, what did you guys do for fun in those days?
I love to read, and I love to dream. I was a dreamer through my childhood. I'm still a dreamer.
And when you say dream, what were you dreaming about as a 14-year-old?
As a 14-year-old, I was big on reading science fiction. I was dreaming about other worlds. I was dreaming about the end of the war, and I was dreaming about growing up and be a productive member of society.
And how did dreaming back then impact who you are today?
Scientists are dreamers, and I think science is one of the fields where you can express your dreams most vividly and get paid for it. That's wonderful.
We have a special guest with us today, Courtney Dirks, who also works for the Coriell Institute for Medical Research. Courtney, did you have a question?
Yes, Dr. Issa, what attracted you to the Coriell Institute from your previous job?
Coriell Institute is a wonderful place, warm, full of people who love their jobs and who love their mission. And the mission at Coriell is to cure diseases. Coriell has one of the largest biobanks in the world. It distributes material to 80 different countries, millions of samples to thousands of scientists, and it just is at the heart of the medical research enterprise, and that was the right place to be to have an impact.
Dr. Issa, growing up in a war-torn country, some young men become angry or bitter, yet you became a healer. Tell us how that happened.
Well, I became a healer. Really, it was my family influence. I was brainwashed into becoming a doctor. My grandfather was a doctor, and it was ingrained in me that I would become a doctor. And because I love my parents, I did become a doctor as well.
And yet that has opened many vistas for you. Tell us about that.
Being a doctor is a wonderful opportunity because you can do many, many different things as a doctor. You can cure diseases, you can treat patients, but you can also be a scientist, you can be a journalist, you can be a businessman or a businesswoman. So it opened up many, many different opportunities for me.
When your parents wanted you to be a doctor, how did you feel?
Well, I really felt at the time that I had no choice, but that I'm very grateful that they wanted me to be a doctor because I wouldn't be a scientist today if I didn't go to medical school.
Was there a specific time when you changed your mind into the feeling like you had to feeling like you wanted to?
When I was in medical school, I discovered science. I never really had much exposure to science when I was in school, perhaps because of the war, perhaps because of the different schools I was in. I discovered science in college and then in medical school, and then I knew that was my calling. And so I was very grateful that I was in medical school for this discovery.
You currently focus on cancer research. Where did the drive to focus on cancer research come from?
I'm indeed a cancer researcher. When I was training as a medical physician, I thought that cancer is really the next frontier. It's one of the most difficult diseases to treat, and it is intellectually challenging. I also had people in my family who died of cancer, and I thought that if I'm going to make a big difference in the world, this is the field where I could make a difference in.
Jean-Pierre, you shared in the green room that you had a very tight network of family in Beirut. Did you have a best friend?
I did have a best friend growing up, the son of neighbors. We became friends, I think, when we were 1 year old, and we remained friends for 55 years. And we finish each other's sentences. We dream alike, we think alike, and I was very fortunate to have this relationship.
And as you think about building your team in this role at Coriell, what attributes of that friend do you value that you bring to your work today?
I think personal relationships are extremely important at work, and I do try to foster a feeling where people are friendly with each other. Being happy at work is the most important feature.
How do you do that?
Well, you bring people together. You bring people together at work. You also bring people together in social events outside of work as well.
Maria?
You mentioned a lot about a period of constant change in your adolescence. How do you think that impacted the way that you work today?
Well, I tell people not to fear change, and I tell people that individual responsibility is very important. I also tell people when they are complaining to me about trivial things that what I want to hear about are solutions, not complaints.
Mm-hmm. Jean-Pierre, your field is on the verge of many enormous breakthroughs. How does that feel to be right in the middle of such exciting change?
Well, this is why I love it. This is why I stayed in the field for over 25 years. At Coriell, we are at the cutting edge of precision medicine, where we're trying to understand each individual person, why they develop diseases and how best to treat them. And to be at the center of this enterprise makes it all worthwhile. It makes it worth getting up in the morning and going to work.
Is it easy to share that excitement with the team?
Do you ever sleep?
Well, I do believe in a work-life balance, and so I do try to sleep, and I think it's important to be also a family person. I think it's important not to get lost in work, and I also think it's important for scientists to communicate their excitement both within the team but also outside the team. This is why I'm here today, and this is why I think that as scientists we are very grateful to be in a field where we are paid to essentially dream and imagine, but also try to help people.
So I can't understand, but I can try to understand what it was like growing up in Lebanon and being surprised at the age of 11 about this war-torn and about going to different places every year and having to move to France. And, well, it must have been very difficult at that point. What's the upside? What's the benefit you got from all that rotten stuff happening to today?
Well, I think that you essentially learn a lot about life as a very young age. I learned, for example, that when things are good, seize the day. And I learned that when things are bad, be patient. Things will get better.
Give me that again. Tell me more about what you mean.
Well, what I mean is that, in a war-torn country, war and rockets aren't raining on you every day. There are some good days where things are quiet, and there are some bad days where rockets are raining and your life is in danger. And you get to appreciate the quiet days a lot more because essentially seize the day. It's fine now. Let's enjoy it. Let's go outside. Let's play. Let's bike outside. And when rockets are raining and your life is in danger, be patient. It looks bad now, but it might be better tomorrow.
So you're telling me that you appreciation and that you're really appreciating and enjoying each day, and then when something rotten's happening, it's like, we're going to get through this.
Exactly. And I think that when things are good, when you're having a good time with your family, when you're having a good time with your friends, you really should make the most out of it because, these good days don't last forever. On the other hand, when things are bad, it's not always completely bleak all the time.
How'd you learn that? Who'd you learn that from?
Oh, it's just complete experience. You learn that from being in a country where you might die one day and things look fine and the sun is shining the next.
In the green room, you mentioned, I don't want to hear complaints, I want to hear solutions. Right. Who taught you that mindset?
Well, again, I think I've had many mentors when I was growing up. I've had many mentors as a physician and as a scientist. But more importantly, this is how I felt when I was a kid. When there is war and when your life is in danger, complaining about it to your parents isn't going to get you very far, right? And so you just learn to internalize these bad situations and figure out how you're going to live through it. And this is where reading and dreaming for me was essentially a solution, and I still feel that way now, and my kids resent it sometimes.
You still feel what way now?
I feel that whining about trivial things is really not very productive, and I tell that to people, and I tell to people that I want to hear about problems, but I want to hear about the proposed solutions to these problems, and that it is not my job essentially to just listen to people complain, but it's my job to make their life easier and to solve the problems.
What's the website address of this organization known as the Coriell Institute for Medical Research?
Coriell.org. Coriell.org.
We've been speaking with Dr. Jean-Pierre Issa, President and CEO of the Coriell Institute for Medical Research here on Executive Leaders Radio. And we will be back in a moment right after this business spotlight. Want help building your business with help from this show's CEOs? Our CEOs can help you uncover more opportunities, grow your sales, connect you, help you raise money, all the big issues, because our CEOs have been there and done that. They've succeeded in creating millions of jobs and earning millions of dollars, and some are available to advise you. Now, email mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. That's mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. The same CEOs you've heard on the show for 10 years may be willing to help you build your business, uncover new opportunities, grow your sales, connect you, help you raise money, all the big issues, because our CEOs have been there and done that, succeeding in creating millions of jobs and earning millions of dollars. And some are available to advise you. Now, email mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. That's mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. Back, you're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce Ethan Eisner, president of ReadTech. Ethan, what is ReadTech? What are you guys doing?
ReadTech is a global technology company based right here in the suburbs of Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. And we provide services to governments, to life sciences corporations, to patent-driven companies and law firms around the world, helping them to be more efficient, more effective, meet compliance needs.
And where are you from originally?
I was born in Baltimore, and then we moved to the Philadelphia area.
How many brothers and sisters?
I have an older brother and an older sister.
So you're the youngest of three.
I am the youngest.
And how young were you when you started playing with computers?
I was in my teens.
Mm-hmm. And how'd you get associated with the computer?
My brother brought one home one day, sort of out of nowhere.
And what'd you love about it?
Building stuff.
Like, give us an example. You mentioned that you started coding at a young age, and what did you like about coding?
Well, it's the act of creating something, right? So, just to fast forward a little bit, my first job, I was a coder out of college, and I liken it to like building a house, right? So. Even though it's all intangible in a way. So you're writing this code, you're putting these pieces together, these blocks together, and when you're done, you have something that actually does something. It serves a purpose. It has a function. And having that creation and having that work, it's actually really fulfilling.
I see. How young were you when you started making money? Did you mention 10, something 11? About you were buying and selling some candy? About 5 a.m.? What was that about?
Yeah, so I had an uncle who at the time had a candy distribution business. So he served a bunch of small businesses in the summer.
And what was your role with him?
So I would help him. One summer I helped do delivery. So we'd wake up, we'd have to be on the road by 5 a.m. and start delivering candy to these small stores.
What evolved from that?
First of all, it was a really good learning experience for me. It helped me sort of understand, hard work. I thought candy would be lots of fun.
And what evolved from that?
I thought, I could take this candy, I could buy it at wholesale from my uncle, and I could start selling it at school.
So you learned about entrepreneurship at a young age, Amy? Oh, excuse me, Drew.
Oh, I was just curious. You mentioned in the green room you had a love for sports, both watching sports and playing sports.
Definitely.
The first question is, what athlete did you look up to or admire?
There was a lot. Julius Erving probably tops the list.
And why Julius?
Because I just thought he was such a class act, great player on the court, and seemed to be a great guy off the court.
And what sport did you enjoy playing most?
Basketball.
And what was your role on the team?
I was usually played forward, like power forward. I'm not a great athlete, but at least in basketball I'm tall, so I can play pretty well.
And it sounds like you're a leader. You actually created a team, didn't you?
I did, yeah. When I was a teenager, I created a team. I wanted to play. I wanted to play with my friends, so I created a team.
And what did that experience teach you about running a business?
It taught me about assembling people that you want to work with, right? Finding good leadership guys. I also had to go out and find us a coach. And how to pull that all together and be successul and have fun while you do it.
Ethan, can you tell us a little bit about your mom and what she was like when you were growing up?
Sure. My mom was incredibly supportive, sort of a fiercely loyal person to, her immediate family, extended family, friends, the community. She was a great influence on my life.
How so? Tell us a little bit more. I think you told us that she would keep your family together and organized.
Yeah, she definitely sort of ran the household, and she kept us, like I said, connected. We had a pretty large extended family that we were very close to, so she sort of kept all those connections in place.
And what did Mom teach you that you bring with you to work with you every day?
She certainly taught me about being supportive and the importance of being supportive. I think for me, it definitely helped me be my best, and so that translates, I think, directly into work. People, if you're supportive with people, you can help them be their best.
Amy?
Who was Mr. Herman, and how did he affect your life?
Mr. Herman was a teacher I had in elementary school. He was, it's one of those things that you remember. And sometimes I don't remember what I did yesterday, but I remember his name, and I remember, sort of what he did for me. And I just felt like he helped focus me. It helped me, see that I could, be the best that I could be. I was very hyperactive in elementary school, so he sort of helped me focus that energy.
How do you bring that focus to your employees?
Well, I try to bring that focus to my employees, and honestly, ultimately to our customers, just by focusing on what's most important to them, right? So how do you deliver what they need to be successful, both at the employee level and at the customer level?
Maria?
In the green room, we learned that your childhood led you to be flexible. What do you think you bring from that to work every day?
Well, I'm open, right? So I don't go into work every day sort of with these mandates and sort of this expectation that everything that comes out of my mouth is right. So, when I meet with my team, whoever that might be, I can change my mind. I can be influenced. If someone has a better answer, we'll follow that path.
Mm-hmm. Peter?
So you mentioned that you had great respect for your father growing up. Tell us why.
So my father, he was a very busy guy. He worked for the government pretty much his whole career. Started with companies like RCA, but then ultimately ended up in the government, and he was a coder, systems analyst. But he also kept himself really busy outside of work. So my memories were he'd come home from work, we'd have dinner, and then he'd go back out again. And so, whether that was he was, president of our synagogue at the time, he was, head of the Masons in the, in the Philadelphia area. So, I had a lot of respect for sort of the drive that he had to kind of, do everything that he wanted to do and be passionate about it.
When you were a kid and things got tough, who did you turn to?
Typically to my mother.
So this idea of not being able to do everything on your own, how do you integrate this into your life of being a CEO?
Honestly, I rely on everyone on my team. We have a great group of people who work at RETEC, and they're very bright and very capable. And so, I rely on them. I'm sure as much as they rely on me.
How large or how small is your team?
Of direct reports?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
A little under 10 people.
And you say you really rely on them. What do you mean?
Meaning they are the owners of their disciplines in the business, and so I rely on them to lead their areas of the business. It's a big company, and so you need a strong team from every level to be able to drive that business forward and ultimately deliver for your customers, because that's what we're in it for.
So on one hand, you're supportive, but on the other hand, it's their job. How do you draw the line?
It's an interesting question. To me, I'm not sure I see the distinction. Right? We've put together this team. We've either grew into it or brought people together, and people sort of support the mission. Right? And so if you're not supporting the mission, if you're not supporting, hey, I need to achieve for our customers, then you probably want to work somewhere else, I guess.
What do you do if somebody's not able to quite do their job, or they need some help with it, or how far do you help them?
As far as you possibly can. I believe in giving someone as much support as they possibly need for them to be successful.
So you're really willing to give of yourself?
I think that's an important part of my role. Maybe it's the most important part of my role.
To be selfless?
Well, to make sure that the people around me are successful. Because if they're successful, I'm successful. And if they're successful, our customers are successful, and so the business is successful.
So you put them first? The team's first?
Yeah.
Huh. So you're not the kind of boss to stand up and it's me, and you take credit for everything, huh?
I hope not.
Uh-huh. So with your customers, if one of your team members really knocks the ball out of the park, you let the customer know that, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh-huh. So you're not the one who's taking credit for everything.
Yeah, it's funny because very early in my career I had a boss who I modeled myself after in that regard.
What do you mean?
He did a great job of giving credit to people on his teams for successes. Mm-hmm. So he would always say, the thanks isn't with me, it's with this person or that person. Mm-hmm. And when things didn't go so well, he would actually absorb that for his team. He'd say, hey, that's on me. I'm the leader of this group, so that's on me. And then he'd take people aside and say, hey, here's what you could have done better to help prevent this situation. And so I really modeled myself after him.
That's interesting. That's not what I read in the newspapers, though, or here on the radio or television. I usually hear that the boss is a jerk and stuff, but that's not who you are, is it?
It's not who I want to be. I've never wanted to behave that way.
Uh-huh. What's the website address for your organization?
It's reedtech.com, REEDTECH.com.
REEDtech. What's the best part of your day?
Best part of my day is learning about how we're performing for our customers. We measure ourselves based on our customers' success metrics.
Huh. Let me have the website address one more time.
It's reedtech.com, REEDTECH.com.
We've been speaking with Ethan Eisner, president of RETEC, here on Executive Leaders Radio. Peter, can you give us a rundown on who else we've had the opportunity of hanging out with?
Sure can, Herb. We've had Maria Gonzalez, president and CEO of HACE, Deanna Byrne, Philadelphia Office Manager of PwC, Dr. Jean-Pierre Issa, President and CEO of Coriell Institute for Medical Research, and just now, Ethan Eisner, President of ReadTech.
I would like to thank my co-hosts, including Peter Snelling, Merrill Lynch, Drew Hanlon, Shannon Lane, Newmark Knights Frank, Maria Panicelli, Obermeyer, Amy Loftus, Slalom, and Taylor Levinson for giving me a hand structuring the questions. They'll be providing our listening audience an educational and entertaining show. I'd like to thank our listening audience for listening. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a radio show. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com, to learn more about our executive leaders. Thank you for joining us today, and do have a nice day. Bye-bye.